Hi, in this video I want to do a vague concepts number 4, and I want to go over two different ideas, and those two different ideas are freedom and the will to do something, and they're pretty much synonymous with each other. And the idea of freedom is you're free to do something, like free will, and that's where this idea is freedom, free will, freedom, I will, the I. So freedom, this idea of freedom where we're making our own choices, that's what I'm saying. Freedom is a vague word where, it can be applied to, social circumstances. Having a freedom, sort of like freeing the slaves and freeing workers, freeing, we're obviously slaves. Free can be applied only from a perceptual point of view, and applying it to something from our own, applying semantics to something to apply, sort of like the idea of I. It's all a matter of words. So freedom, so we're free. I can freely move in my circumstance. I can freely do something. Even if I'm binded to a table, I can still freely do something. I can freely think. I'm free to do something, even if someone's applying something to me. It's a very strained way of applying the word, but you can still do something regardless. Even if someone's sticking electrodes on you and shocking you constantly, you're constantly just buzzed up. It doesn't matter. You're still free to do something. Even beyond just getting used to the pain or whatever. In that example, you're still free to do something. You're still free to do something. You can apply it. So as thin as air, you can apply freedom. But it's all a matter of semantics. And then there's better words to apply to the same situations. You're free to do it, and that's a overall better. It's a go-to word when you're trying to find words to use to apply to something, and applying it to all sorts of things. You're free to do something. Obviously, the I though is where you can start contradicting that. You have a will. Well, you have a will based on your past experiences, and these things that have led you to where you are. You can still say experience without saying cause and effect. There's still an experience, even if there is a cause and effect. Regardless, you experienced all the things up until now. You didn't need to have a cause and effect to apply to the same situation. So freedom, and I want to say cause and effect are vague words too, because if everything's deterministic, based on cause and effect, this idea of vague concept of cause and effect leading to the idea of everything leading to where you are now, then applying this idea of, since everything's deterministic, then everything isn't really cause and effect. There's one cause and effect, and that's all there is. There's one cause, there's interactions leading to an end, and that's the effect. So freedom, we don't have freedom, not really. Perceptually, we can have freedom. We have the freedom to interact. We're interacting, and we're constantly able to interact, even if we're dead. It doesn't necessarily take a will to have freedom, to have a sense of freedom. You obviously, relatively speaking, feel free if you were a slave, and all of a sudden that your slave owner, your owner said you can go free. You can apply it to those kinds of situations, but obviously, it's obviously a vague use of the word. It's more of a semantics thing. It's a perceptual thing. Sort of like I said, free will is a perceptual thing. Freedom is a perceptual thing. It's a semantics thing, applying it to certain situations, vague situations. The whole vagary of words and concepts can obviously come into it when you think about it too much. But freedom, you're free when you're a slave if your owner says you can leave. He no longer owns you anymore. So you're free from at least that circumstance. But are you free from the life game? You're still not free from the life game. Your whole being is not free from the existence in this cosmos, in this universe. You're still existing. So freedom is a vague word. It's a semantics word. It can't be applied really to anything. It's a vague concept for that reason. You can apply it to vague, but certain circumstances, sort of like being freed from something, a certain circumstance where you can apply it. But the whole idea of like free will and things like that, you don't have free will. You can perceive free will. You can still do something. You can still interact from your point of view, moving forward into the future, still doing something and interacting. You have the free will to do something. You have the free will to act based on the interactions and all these other forces moving on you, and based on your interactions with those leading to something. But once you recognize that's a force at work, you don't really have the free will once you recognize that. So the perception almost goes away. But you're still caught up in the perception. No much how much you look past the illusion is still there no matter what. even if you know everything leading up to now, cause and effect. People understand cause and effect, but determinism they can't put their hands on as much or grasp as well. Even though you know it, you just deny it more than anything. And the idea of an I and a will, moving forward like an I. There's no will, sort of like free will. And I say the whole word maybe free will. There's no will to do anything. There's no I. There's just circumstances creating me who I am. I'm working on the same mechanical process that created everything else in this existence. So no matter what, we're still existing on the same level as everything else. So yes, doesn't matter. There's not an I. There's a me. There's a brain. There's an interaction. Synapses firing. Chemicals wishing and washing back and forth, filling up certain things, and so on and so forth. There's just a bunch of interactions leading to these interactions of emotion and perception and projection. So there's no real I or will based on this idea. There's perception of all these things interacting based on the idea of these things moving forward and idea of a deterministic universe leading into something else. We're working on our crude forces, and these mechanisms. Precious commodities controlled by crude forces. Our body is a crude force. All these things happening, but this consciousness, awareness, is the thing that we're subjecting all these crude forces to, even our bodily function and everything controlling this bodily function. The thing that creating our bodily function is the thing that we're fighting when it comes to this perception. There's nothing this perception can do about it. Sort of like if you're having an anxiety attack, you have to sort of just go through the anxiety attack because you just have to grin and bear it. You can't do anything. You just in it. You just grind your teeth. There's nothing you can do. So I think that's a point made good enough. I need to finish this video before the battery runs out. So thank you. I think I made my point good enough, and I might touch on these subjects more in the future. So thank you, and until next time, bye.